Hello and welcome back. So we've just also covered the analytics, API analytics in Azure. Now there is one more thing I want to quickly touch base upon, which is the versioning, right? So again, in the chapter of API management, we saw that this is one of the fourth very basic services or functionality that any API management tool would offer. That's called lifecycle management, right? So once you build an API, there would always be more and more increments or enhancements to this same API, right? In the case of the item API, they might add few more columns to that item table, right? And they would want you to include those columns in the item API. But at the same time, you also don't want to break the previous API, right? Because you already have some developers who have already implemented the code to use the previous version of the API. So rather than changing or completely updating the same API, what you can do is you can add another version of this API, right? Let's see how we can do that. Let's hop onto the Azure portal. So here on the Azure portal, I'm in the APIs section. This is where you see all of your APIs, right? And now you're ready to add additional version of your items API, right? Let's go ahead and click on these three dots next to the items API. And there it shows you plenty of other options as well, right? What we are interested in adding another version of the same API, right? Let's click on add version. I'm going to name v1 as a version, right? And then you can choose various ways to differentiate this version. You can either add that v1 as part of your URL endpoint itself, or you can have a header parameter, or you can have a query string, right? I'm just going to choose the path, right? So it would just add that v1 in the API endpoint itself, right? And then the full API version name, I'm going to name version 1. Items API v1. Okay, and this is again choosing both the products, so it's available to both of these products. And let's go ahead and create items API v1. Okay, so there we go. This is the original version, and now we have v1. Okay, ideally you should start with v1 and then you should move on to v1, v2, v3, like that, right? But we just added another version called v1. Now if you see, you have both of your operations as is, right? Because we have copied the original version. Now assuming that you've changed the logic app, right? You added another logic app that is going to cater to this new version. So we will leave the old logic app as is, but we are going to add an additional logic app that would be used by this version 1. In this case, what we'll do is we're not making the actual change, but you would choose that additional logic app, right? So that new logic app would be called when you call this new version API, right? I hope this is making sense. You may have seen a lot of API endpoints that would have v1, v2 in them, right? Almost every API would have versions, right? Because once you build the APIs, you're bound to make changes in future. And when you make the changes, you don't want to completely deprecate the previous version. You want to keep the previous version and allow your developers time to catch up with your newer versions, right? Okay, so for us, we've just added version 1. Let's go to the developers portal and let's see how this is displayed to the developers, right? So I'm again going to the incognito mode to open the developers portal. Let's open the developer portal. And if I go to APIs now, I can see that the items API is the original version. And then I also have items API v1, right? And in the items API v1, As you can see in the endpoint URL, I have this v1 added in the URL itself, right? So whenever you pass the exact same request, but if you have v1 as part of your version, right, then it would directly go to that second version of the same API. Right? So this was versioning. This is the life cycle of APIs. If you work into API management, right, this is something you would have to deal with day in and out. You would have like hundreds of versions of various APIs, right? Fortunately, using the Azure API management, things are very easier, right? I hope you're also feeling the same way as me. I find the Azure API management to be very user friendly. If you happen to work in the API management team and if you have to use Azure, your life would be much more simpler, because there are so many things already taken care for you by Azure platform, right? Make sure you practice versioning, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.